So we already created two types of actions. And on the action that has the assign to myself, let's try to optimize it a bit, because it's not working well and actually it has some bugs here. For instance, the status for the ones that you assign to yourself, the status didn't change. So let's first correct this very quickly. So on the assign to myself, I'm actually updating the user ID, but I need to update something else, right? Also, the status. So in this case, let me just check here on the resource. Yeah, status ID. So status ID, and in this case needs to be the status ID that has where name assigned first ID. So let's just do a quick test here. Model, very good. And I'm going to assign a new one. This one, for instance, says as assign new 235, assign to myself, run. And now it's assigned. So this is the first correction we need to do. The second one is we want to run these assign to myself, but only on the lines that you can actually run it. So for instance, I don't want to do this because these will actually run it again on the same lines that I have where the user, the current operator is already assigned to. So how do we do that? So here we go. We need to go to the actions of our resource, and you have here this new assign to myself, but we are going to put a bit more logic here. And to do that, first of all, logically, we need to use the can see. So can see function requests. So in this case, as we already learned in the previous lessons, the permission, the authorization is given by the can see. And the second thing is we need to use the inline actions. So the inline actions comes on the latest versions of Laravel Nova, and it allows us to actually run the action on a line. So all you need to do is just to put the show on table row, and here I'm just going to return true. And in this case, the action is no longer on the top with the selects, but you actually have this assign tickets to myself. You just click here, and then you just assign exactly the action as it is. But as you can see, the action appears in a lot of places. And what we need to do is we need to actually disable the action, deauthorize the action on the ones that we already have someone assigned to, in this case myself. So to do that, we are going to learn how to handle with the model. How do we retrieve the model connected to this resource? How do we verify if there is an user ID there? And in case there is a user ID, then we need to return false, else we return true. So it's very simple. All you need to do is on this request. So this request has a lot of information, as we already saw previously. The request depends from the Nova request. And here, if you go to vendor, Laravel source, and then this Nova request. And I really invite you to verify here. Nova request, sorry, not Nova request is on the request. So it's here on the HTTP requests, and then you have this Nova request. Here, you see it interacts with resources, and you have a lot of public methods here that you can actually use for your code, and especially this one here that says model. See the last one, it says get a new instance of the underlying model. So it's very simple. As soon as you do a model, you are now accessing the model of the instance of this resource, so each line that you have there, right? So what we need to do is simple. If on this request model the user ID is null, then we just want to return false. We don't want the action to be visible. We want to deauthorize the action on this case. And to do this, we can optimize this code no problem at all. But it's not for this tutorial. So in this case, if I do a refresh now, actually it doesn't appear anywhere. So let me see the mistake that I did here. This request model, and then the user ID request user ID. So let me just do a quick test here. Return. So if it's different from null, what we want to say is that if it's different from null, then we'll return true. Let's check it again. It's getting false everywhere. So in this case, of course, it's the in case of the Nova resource, it's not the request itself, but it's the model. So I go back here. We are in the instance of the resource, so it's this. You just assign it to yourself. So as you can see, it's wrong because I just made a small condition is wrong. So in case the user ID is null, it will return true. So what we want now is the actions on the other ones. And this is exactly what's going to happen. So as you can see on these ones, you can have the detail here. And if you view, you don't have the action on the top right. But if you go to these ones and you click on the details, you also have the action here on the top to assign to you. And also here, now you can just click here in the line 234, in the ID 234. And now it's assigned to you. So I hope you understood now how we can have these actions with a logic on the authorization, because it's really powerful in case you have to do this kind of conditions, especially for your resources index views. Thanks for watching. So after creating the assign action, we're now going to do an assign action. And you might ask yourself, why am I going to do the same thing as we just did on the previous tutorial that was working here when you click on the assigned? Where the thing is, you're going to see something that is very specific and you need to pay attention to, especially when you are creating actions that are correlated with resources that might not have a null filter value for the permission that we are defining on our action. So let me just show you what does this mean in a very simplified way. When we created on the ticket this assigned to myself, as you can see here, we are saying return model equals to null. So what happens is, no matter what comes on this model attached to this resource, from each of these resource lines that you have here, Nova is actually verifying if it can show this button assigned to myself. And in this case, because the model, the user ID is not null, it doesn't show the button. But when we do the contrary, it's a bit different, and you're going to see that. So let me just create an action that does that. Nova action. I don't know, let's call it return to unassign ticket. Oops, just call it ticker. I'm just going to rename it very quickly. Just like this, and here. And because it's very similar to the assign, I'm just going to copy paste the same code. And I'm just going to change the user ID to null. So we are going to put back this ticket into the queue and put it back with the status new. Okay, and here we just call it whatever. Just like this. So this is a part that is simple, and you might have thought, okay, I just create this an assigned ticket, then I come here and you just copy paste this, and you might think, okay, if I already have the policy that shows me the tickets that I can see, all I need to see is, okay, then I just want to use this an assigned ticket on the resources that actually the user ID is going to be different from null. And when you run it the first time, you see that not everything happens as you want, because you see that then assign ticket to myself is here, and because we are running these on the index, Nova actually has a way, or at least doesn't give an error in case the user model is null. And this is the part that is very specific that I want to show you here. You can spend hours because of this mistake, like I already did on my past. And basically it's because of something that happens. Now when I run this action, you're going to see it, it's going to give an error, it's going to give a policy error. And this is strange because you might think, okay, but I'm just putting here different to null on my model. Why is it actually not running? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? And the thing is, yes, you're right about that. The thing is that sometimes when the resources are being loaded and verified, sometimes they are not correlated with the model. That's why this one doesn't give an error, because actually these model that are here will return null, or will have an ID equals to null. And this is another thing that you need to pay attention to the way we are going to do this. So let me show you how you can, let's say, enhance your actions so you don't spend hours understanding why this might be correlated with the policy. And especially because if you come back here, you see that actually it gives a forbidden error. You might be tempted to go to your policies on your ticket on the update and see, okay, what's going on here? And I'm just going to return this true because there's nothing resolved, nothing connected to this. So here, as you can see, it says resolve Nova request. So this is perfectly fine, this code. And when you have this code here, then you might see, okay, why these policies? Well, guess what? There's nothing related with your policy. Actually, it's related with the way Nova acts on this scanC method on the moment that is running the resources. And in case the model is empty, you will never run this. And this will throw an exception, or in this case, it's not going. It's going to be an exception in this case. Sorry. And since this is seen as a policy for Nova, a specific one, not the ones that we can use on your policy file, on your policy class, then here it will actually not run this code at all. So, for instance, let me just show you this. If I write here info, let's put it this way: if this model difference from null, I want to put an info with the ID, else we just write info model is null. Now this is where it comes the thing. We are going to check here on our Laravel log that actually sometimes it's going to write the number. Actually, it's better to write the number, right? And another times it's not going to write it. It's going to say model is null. So let's take a look. I'm going to click here. Of course, it goes to the policy. But now if I go to my log, it's empty, immediately empty. So in the first line on the first resource, it's already comes empty. And empty is not even a null. It's actually, there's nothing there. So what does this mean when there's nothing there? Well, guess what? It's getting on this info that you see here. But there is no ID because the model was just instantiated there with nothing. It's when you do a new on your model and then inside there is nothing there. And this is the thing you need to pay attention to, and especially on the Laravel Nova on the actions, you see that it says here something about it. So when you go to the actions and then to authorizations, where is authorization of? Let me just go here. No, not here. Sorry, it's on the authorization. Let me put here action, authorizing actions. Yeah, this zone. So when you are when you are here, you see that Nova says this too. It's important to remember that the resource actions are not always resolved using an underlying model instance. Because of this, you should check for the existence of the model instead of assuming one is available. Well, it's not actually the model, because the model is present. What is not present there is not fresh, is not with an ID there, for instance. So this is where we actually need to resolve this that way. So I'm going to take out this code. and I'm just going to put here that verification. So we just need to do if this model ID and not only the model is null, then you just need to return a true. It's just overriding, and it's not going to do anything on your actions because there is no resource attached to it, right? So that's, if you go back here now, go home, tickets, it didn't run because it runs over inside a transaction, and because it gave an error in this case, it just throw out the sorry, it doesn't run out on it didn't even access the transaction itself to run, in this case as a synchronized queue transaction. In this case, the only thing what happened is, even before that, it was giving that exception that is thrown out as a forbidden HTTP 403. So now if I unassign here, it will run, but actually it doesn't because I forgot to add here the status on this case. And that's it. Sorry for that. I'm going to run it again. And as you can see now, the 250, let me try it out on the 250. So it was assigned. And now if I click it again, it goes back to the queue. Okay. This is a small hidden gem that can save you a lot of hours. So after creating some actions, we are going to create a UI component for our dashboard. So we are going to create total tickets, for instance, that we are going to load on a dashboard. So we will create a dashboard and a card that will be assigned to that. We're going to see how on the view component also you will pass data from the server to the client and display it on the screen. Not so much paying attention to the CSS on this case, because what I want to show to you is how we built all of these so you can use them and create your own dashboards. So to do that, the first thing is to actually create a dashboard. So let me just do PHP Artisan Nova dashboard. So that's the way you create dashboards. And then let's call it ticket insights, whatever. I mean, you give a name, it's perfectly fine. And when you do that, here on the left, you see that on the app Nova dashboards, you'll have these ticket insights. That's your dashboard. Then there is a cards, there is a URI key, sorry. And on the cards is where you actually place all the collection of cards that you want to see on the screen. And to do that, we also need to create our card. So before that, let me just load this dashboard, even if it's empty. So you go to providers, Nova service provider, and then on the dashboards here, you can just put new ticket insights, just like this. And this should load at least an empty dashboard. Let me just refresh the screen. Exactly. The name on the left says ticket insights, but you can override that on the dashboard. There is a method called label. Yeah, label. So I'm just copy paste it here. Ticket insights, just like this. And then here I'm just going to call it ticket insights. And the label changes on the left. So when I click on the ticket insights, there is nothing that I see. So for that, I'm going to create a card. So PHP Artisan Nova card. You need to give it the format of a library. Let's call it Nova, I don't know, total tickets. You call it whatever you want. Let's just install the npm. Okay, it's just some seconds more. Then we need to compile the assets. And finally, we update our composer package with this package, with this new package that is added to your composer package. Just give it a couple of seconds. Updating dependencies. So here we go, Nova total tickets. Well done. So now, when I go to my dashboard, ticket insights on the cards, I will add the Nova total tickets, just like this. And it didn't add, let me just add it here manually. So on your Nova component, Nova total tickets, this is the one. Go back here, use, just like this. Yeah, so it's added. Now if I go to our screen and I refreshed my ticket insights, I see a card that says Nova Total Ticket. So this is the beginning on how now you, pardon me, now you can actually change this. And to change this, we need to actually to go to the card itself. So in this case, to Nova Components and Nova Total Tickets, and we just make a watch. You run it as a watch. So when you change the code, the front-end code, it automatically gets recompiled. There we go. By sorry. And now that we have these being recompiled, we just need to change the code of the resource itself. So here on the components on the card by itself already brings a prop that we will use. We also need to pass the total tickets to the front end from the server, right? So let's say we call it total, like we say total tickets, right? Like a number. And to do that, as we saw in the previous on our previous tutorial already, we need to create a function that receives the metadata that comes from the server. That we are just going to do it in a minute. So we just need to do call the key data there for the view component, and then make it as a function because the view component, and then just get a total like exactly like this. So what does this mean? Means we are using the prop cards, and then there is a meta attribute called total that we are going to create. In case it becomes empty, we just put a 0 there. Of course, now after recompiling, it's going to say 0 there because we are not passing anything, and this is where we are going to do it now. So to pass something, the card actually and where is the card? Card here. The card, okay, you can also, don't forget, you can also define the width of the card using the tailwind, 1/3, 1 second, or full. But the element, as I was saying, it inherits it has a trait metable, and the trait metable is the way we pass metadata, let's call it that way, to the front end. So in this case, when I'm instantiating my Nova tickets, I can say with meta total, and then here the ticket all count. So let me just put the model here. Very good. So what happening is I'm passing the total key that will be loaded on the total of the cards on the view here. So this is the way, as we saw in the previous tutorial, the way we pass actually data from the server side in a synchronous way, and we also already saw in a synchronous way too. How do we pass to the server? So now if I go back here, it should show a number that is different, 250 total tickets. So this is the way you create a UI component that, of course, now the sky is yours, right? You have all the liberty to do whatever you want here, to place a CSS, to generate much more complex logic on the view component. But this is the way you do to show data, a UI component, like for instance a KPI, where you show the total tickets anytime that the user clicks on this dashboard here. Thanks for watching. So one of the things you need to think about when you develop your Laravel Nova features is how are you going to test them? So I mean, not test them as a human, but actually as a machine. So in this case, what we have here is our Laravel Nova help test that we're working on, and we are going to see how we can actually create some basic tests, like for instance, if we are an operator in this case. You'll get the picture, and then of course you can replicate that for the type of testing functionalities that you might need to do. So in this case, what I suggest to you, because Laravel Nova also allows you on this latest version to use Dusk, and that goes for another video that I might do in the future. But for this one, I want to show to you in a very simple way how can you actually quickly in 5 minutes make 2 or 3 tests. For instance, on this case, we want to test the profile operator. Like we can test that the operator can, for instance, is forbidden to actually create a ticket, can, for instance, have access to the index, as exactly as we're seeing here, and I don't know, we can later on, for instance, verify that the operator also has one filter here, and not actually more filters. Again, it's just to show some examples how you can test it. You get the idea. and you then can use this amazing package that Brian Dillingham did, and I use it too, and it's very pretty straightforward to use it, and that's what I'm going to show to you here. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is to require the package. I'm just going to copy paste the line here, just like this. Just give it a moment. Okay, it's installed, and from here on you create your test, and then from there on you just add the trait called Nova assertions, and then you have all these options that are here in terms of methods that you can use directly in each of your test cases. So let's create a new test like PHP Artisan. You know that you can just run the PHP Artisan test, and it just executes the PHP unit. And you also have two types of tests. Again, this is a bit outside of the Nova. You have the unit testing that extends from test case from the PHP unit directly, and then you have the feature test that extends also from a test case, but from this test case that is here. And this one does some things like, for instance, bootstrapping Laravel and other things that gets from the test case, the base test case that is here on this class. And when you create a new test, so if I do PHP Artisan make test, by default it creates a feature test, but you can also create a unit test if that's the case. Our case, we just want to create a feature test. I can call it like, for instance, I can call it what? I can call it check operator operations. No, check operator actions test. Don't forget to call it test at the end, because if you don't call it test, when you do PHP Artisan test, it doesn't run. So now, sorry, I'm not being too creative on the names here, but you get it. So check operator actions test, and here we are going to do all the actually I can call it operation scopes test. Might be a bit better. Scopes. And here we just create our test cases that we have. So our test cases instance. So I'm just going to save it. I'm going to do PHP Artisan test, and it already runs here this operator scopes test. Of course, when you the scaffolding for the test and Laravel, you just have this, go to your route, basic route, in this case to your default, the home one, and then just verify that you get a 200. So if you return, for instance, 403, that is HTTP forbidden, you'll see that it gives an error, and the error comes here. So very pretty straightforward, again, to start making tests in case you don't know. Again, I strongly encourage you to, of course, at least make some kind of minimal tests on any web app that you do. This can give just a course about how to do tests here. That's not what we're going to talk about. So now that we have the Nova assertions that is here, the first thing, as you can see, is to actually use this trait called Nova assertions. So that's what I'm going to do here on top. There you go. And from this moment, we can actually make Nova tests in a very simplified way. So first of all, you need to, let's say, simulate a user. And on this case, I want a user that is an operator. So the operators is Peter and John. So I'm going to put the operator number 2. I'm just going to get the model here on this. And when you load your user, you should be ready to go. So if I run it again, actually there is no assertions here, of course. So I will just call one of these assertions, for instance, the Nova index. So we will navigate to the Nova index, and I'll correct that after, and assert. Okay, so we have an HTTP answer 200. Of course, there is no user, so it doesn't have access to the users, right? So as you can see, it starts to work, like response status 403 does not match the expected 200 status code. Good, perfect. So we don't want the users because we don't have access to it as an operator, but we do want the tickets, as you can see here, as the URI key. So in this case, if I go back there, the test says I'm still forbidden. Now you can start asking, what's going on here? I mean, I log in as a user, as you can see. I know he has access to tickets. I tried to verify the assertion, but it just says forbidden when actually I can log in. Well, the thing is that when you are using this library, you need to pay attention to this login user that has access to Nova, and this is very important. So this is a moment that we are not actually logging in via gate, right? We are actually using a simulation, and here the tests, they actually use this gate to verify if you can actually log into Nova or not. Not via the browser itself, because in that case we're using the middleware. So what happens here is we need to pay attention to this. So you need to go back to your providers, Nova, and here this is what comes by default, right? Exactly as we have here. Well, not with the Taylor, but you get the idea. We just need to override it, and of course you need to pay attention to this because you cannot put this in production. Or at least is not a good practice, because then all of your users, no matter what they will have access actually to in case they're in the web gate by default on the same gate as your web app, they're going to have access to Nova. But in this case, for the tests that we are doing here, you just need to do like this. So what I'm saying is that just override the gate itself, return on the argument null, so there is no user that we need to check inside on the callable, and then just return a true. Simple as this. So now if I go back, I should actually be able to pass that test. There you go. So the test just passed. And because the test passed, now everything it's a new world for you. We just need to use anything that is on those assertions. And those assertions, they might cover most of the test cases you might, although they don't cover everything, but at least I would say pretty good chance that you might just come with some of them, like the relationships, a bit more advanced things, that you might need to pay to go another approach. But these ones, for sure, you resolve much of your minimum quality that you need to have for your web applications. Let's do some things here that are nice. So for instance, this one is test, check if operator. Check if operator, in this case we are in the operator, so let's do test check if check access to index view, right? So this is one. Now the next one is, let's say, test. I want to see, for instance, if I cannot create tickets. So in this case, text cannot create tickets. Okay, I'm just putting some examples here. And as I said, let's test another one about the filters. Test has access to one filter. Again, it's as an example. You can also specify the filter that you want to have access to, but in this case, we just count the filters there. So first of all, cannot create tickets. So again, we go with the same user. So how do we do here? We go on the response, and if we don't want to have access to the create, we try to enter into the create, and then it should be return an HTTP 403 forbidden, right? So in this case, if we go back to the package, we have this Nova create. So I'm just going to copy paste here, just like this. Response equals to these Nova create tickets, and response assert forbidden. If you want to know what assertions you have on the HTTP test, you can go to available assertions on Laravel Nova, and then you can see that there is a forbidden here. Okay, so it's just a 403 status. So if I say assert forbidden, then I would actually verify that for these Nova create tickets, I don't have access to it. And finally, one filter, there is also method here, an assertion for the filter, assert actions, assert filters. Okay, so I'm just going to copy paste this. This one, let's put it to fail. So we have one filter, let's say we have two. And again, we go back to the index, that's where we should have filters. And we just pass it here. Okay, so we have a filter count 2, we should generate an error. So let's run it again. We're finalizing this tutorial very fast. We're really at the end. So as you can see, example test failure, check operator scopes, test has access to one filter. So as you can see, there is a failure here. It was a check on the check access to index view. It was okay on the cannot create tickets, but it has access to one filter. So it says there is an actual size of 1, but we are expecting a size of 2 because actually that's what the assertion is there. So if we pass it to 1 again, the tests will all pass, the 5 of them, in this case the 3 that you created. So I guess it gives you a very good idea how you can make tests in a pretty straight 3 examples. Again, the package of Brian has a lot of things like lenses, like fields counts, if your field exists with a specific value inside. I mean, it's a full world. Assess relations, for instance, in this case, if there is a relation there. You can even assert policies. So this is really nice. Like, for instance, you can verify. We tried to enter into the create, and then we checked the HTTP 403 with assert forbidden, right? But you can actually do an assert can view or an assert can create on specific use of policies, for this case, for that authenticated users. Again, I really encourage you to check this package and use it for your own testing. One of the problems that you can find out on resources, especially on the display, is that you cannot search for relationship content. So for instance, if I have this belongs to on this orders resource, I have this user, right? So it's a user that actually bought these products for this order. The problem is you cannot search for these names. So if I search for Natalia, it doesn't show anything. So someone developed a very nice package to resolve this. So if you search for search relations, you get this package from Titus Gaelius. And what actually this package does is it allows you to search for that relations that on the columns that you want. So let's just install it very quickly. Just like this, you do a composer require as usual. You wait a bit, starts installing, and waiting a bit more. Okay, it's installed. So how can we use it? Basically, you just use this trait, searches relations. So let's put that here. So I was doing the test on the orders. So we go here to order, and you just add it here, just like this. Hopefully gets the trait there, searches relations. And then it says you simply add a public static search relations. And here you define what relationship with the name and key that you have. So let's do it a try. Just put it here. So the column that I want to search for is the column that is the products. So in this case, we call it products, and I want to search on the products the name. So let's see if it works like that. So if I go here and I search for Natalia, I don't get anything. So why? Because I don't think I'm using it the right way. Simply add then array as a relationship nib and a key and an array of columns to search for the value. So in this case, products, sorry, I'm stupid. It's the user, right? Belongs to. We're using the test on the user. Here we go. User, Natalia, sorry. Not good today. There you go, Natalia Brown. Very nice. So again, it's an example how you can use this package. Again, it searches on belongs to, but also on other type of relations that you have. So it's very good, and I really strongly encourage you to use it. There is a great package that you should consider install. There is this Nova button. So this Nova button was created by Brian Dillingham. He's very active on the Nova community, actually. You should follow him. And this button, what does is it just creates a button like a field, as you can see here. It has 200,000 downloads already. And you just need to install it just like this. I already installed it. And then you just copy the button to your resource. So let me just do here, going to product, for instance, and just going to add it here at the end. Just import the namespace for this class. Save it. Going here to products, do refresh. And as you can see here on the right, you now have the button. So the button is not styled, but it actually has very good instructions here how to do things. So let's just go quickly to button style and just need to do like a style primary or an info. So I'm just going to actually pass that here for us to see. So I'll call it info, for instance. Do refresh again. and the button gets styled here on the right, as you can see. So when you have the button styled, you can actually do something on the button itself. So by default it doesn't do anything, just a success, but it is actually calling something that we're going to see in a couple of minutes. Here let's see what kind of things you can do. You can mark it to go to a Nova route specifically with the attributes that you have on that model specifically. So this is really useful in case you want to, for instance, I'm on a product and there is a I don't know, a name or an ID here that you want to use wherever, and you can just go there. In this case, for instance, let's see if it works actually with a supplier. So I'm just going to come here, and I didn't do this test before. Let's see if it works. So we go to detail of my supplier, because I do have a supplier here, as you can see, this supplier, and this supplier has a relationship, so it's called supplier. And then this supplier, let me just check here on the product how it's called. So if I go here to the product, I have the supplier here, and then I want to pass the ID. So let's see if it works. So I want to go for the supplier there. I'm going to refresh the screen, and I want to there is a belongs to undefined property supplier. I made a mistake here. So POSSEC, I do notify, and you go to POSSEC in this case. There is a ID on this resource is not working well, so it's not totally related with my code there. So in this case, as you can see, it's very simple to pass here, and there is more to pass data there to the button. There's also another things that you can pass, that you can work on the button. Let's check it out. So you can pass a direct link, so just like that. So instead of a detail, for instance, I just pass this one, and I guess in this case it goes to a page of the Laravel Nova in this case. Yeah, so it opens as a new page here. There you go. There is more things that the reload is also very good when there is triggered events. And actually, talking about events, this is something I want to show that is really nice. So for instance, if you have an event if you want to have a server-side event that you want to call, there is already a default one that comes with the button, that is this event called button click. So let's try to use it on our event service provider, and see if we can at least write something on the log file just for you to see, and then of course you can take it from there on your project. So app, we go to the app and then providers. So where are the providers here? And it says that it exists this button click, right? So I need to create a listener. So let me just create a quick listener here. So very quickly, let's go to my course, PHP Artisan make listener. Custom, I don't know, I'm just in write to log. Okay, so actually I call it listener, it's fine. So here the name was button click. So button click class, and in this case we will trigger the listener write to log class. So let's just import here the button click. So on the write to log, as it says here on this code, you can receive an event key, and then you receive the event, and then of course the resource itself. So this is really useful. So if I go here to the handle and I just do like info, and I just want to write the event key, just like this, and then I just put a comma, and then I do event. I do it. Actually, it encodes automatically to JSON event. Sorry, resource. And when you do this, it will actually as you can see here, resource, and then it passes the information of the resource. So there is a model connected to it, and then there is actually a key of the attribute. So in this case, it's called button click, because it's the one that we are actually. So it's a kebab event name that it passes on the event key for us to identify what event was triggered there, in case we are using this generic button click, for instance. So let's see what happens now. Let me just clear the logs in case there's something there. No, of course there is. So what are we expecting here? So we have the button, and we are going to click here, and it's going to trigger an event or write something on the log. So I'm just going to refresh, and I'm going to click it here. Oops, sorry, I forgot to change the link. So it's not the link actually. It's not nothing at all. You just need to pass it like this. It's called automatically. And as you can see, it always calls that event, but it also of course sent to the page because I forgot to take it out. But as you can see, you get the name of the event, in this case notify by default, and then you get all the information about the resource that was passed. So in this case the ID was 74, and of course it doesn't pass a class name here because I'm not using it. On the encoding here is not being encoded, but you get all the information about that resource there. So the button is very useful again for you to use it here. It also works with filters in case you want, or with lenses, sorry, in this case with lenses, and also with filters because it has all the field logic behind it, right? And it's a very good and strong UI component that you can use on your projects. Hope you enjoyed. A very nice package that I recommend you to use is this Nova Ajax Select, made by Brian Dillingham. Brian is a very active user in the Laravel Nova community, so I really encourage you to check all the packages that he has for Nova. They are very, very good. And this one is not an exception. So here, what he did was you can actually connect drop-downs between themselves by filtering data from one to another. So you can select a country, then it filters the states of that country, and finally the cities of the selected state on the drop-down. And the good thing is that this is done asynchronously, meaning you don't actually load the data on the server side, but you will asynchronously being called on the onChange method on the view component that will reload data given the Ajax call on the API that is mentioned on your get method. So to do that, let me just first of all install the package. So we just go here to commands, and we just copy paste the line just like this. Okay, good. And now what I did was I just created here table called claims, as you can see here on this one. So this table just has a description, a supplier ID, a product ID, and an order ID. So we're going to select the supplier, and then given the supplier we are going to filter by the products, and given the products we are going to filter the orders connected to that product that is given by that supplier. So to do that, let's go to our resource. So I already placed everything here, no need to lose time with that on the claim. And first of all, logically you can use the belongs to make all the filters there, and as you know, all the drop down, sorry, and as you know, when you do this, they will actually not work as we want, right? Because they are not connected to each other. So if I just go here, I make the product and I make the order, and I go to our categories claims and do create claim. So we have them all here, but they're not filtered. This is actually what we are going to do. So this is not what we want to do. We keep the supplier there and we remove the rest. And we are going now to start using the Ajax Select. So we call Ajax Select, and I can actually copy paste the code here faster than actually doing that. And then you just change for our benefit. So here on the Ajax Select, so I don't want the user here. So the first one that I want to use is actually product, right? From the supplier, we then can filter the products that are coming. And the key that I'm using on my table is the product ID. So in this case, it's an API, it can be an API, whatever. Let's say it's from the resource claim, and we in this case have the supplier here. In this case, it's not the the parent is not company, so in this case it's going to be supplier. And what we are passing is actually this supplier that comes from the parent one, and what we want to have is the products attached to it. Okay, so this is again a way to work on it, but you can work as you want. Here what you are passing is actually the value that comes from the field that is the parent one, and then you say what is the parent one. It's the supplier. So very simple when you start knowing how to use it. And of course now if we go here, you're going to see that nothing happens because we didn't create the request itself, so nothing happens here. And on our network, if I just load it again, you see it gives an error saying yeah, not found exception, so this route is not created. So let's create this route very fast. Going to routes, web, and here all you need to do is more or less what Brian gives an example here. Let me just copy paste this one, and then we just adjust it to our needs. So we go to the API and then claim, and then supplier in this case, and then products. And the function that we want here is actually we can use dependency injection to load the supplier. And of course, due to the route binding, we get immediately the supplier that was selected with that ID given from the parent field. And here we just need to do return. So let me just use here the return directly. So return, I want to return from this supplier, and this supplier has a relationship called products that I want to map. And for each of those products, I want to return the product ID. And I think I have a name on the products. Yeah, there's a name there. So what I'm saying here, I have a supplier. So the supplier is passed here. Did I load the supplier? I did. So I'm passing here, and then I iterate by each of the products collection, and I return these. And then you need to apply also the middleware Nova to have all the authorizations that you need to do. Just for information, this middleware Nova, if you go to your config, you don't see it here. If you go to Nova and you go to middleware, you see these. But actually what Nova does, Nova creates a middleware group called Nova, and it uses the tag, the configuration item called nova.middleware. So all of these ones will be all of these middlewares will be part of the middleware group called Nova. Okay, just for you to know. So in this case, we already have here the information that we can return. So let me just do a quick check if everything is working as we want. And so here we go. So supplier, efforts, and you can see awesome plastic shoes, and again product sleek clean. So it is working very well as we want. One thing is that this component, it just works in the form. It doesn't work in the other ones, the index and the detail. So what you need to do, as he also proposes, is to use this method. You just create a new field with the same name, product, and you just say accept on form, so you can have it actually in your index. Now let's do the second part. So now we have a product, and the next step is actually to have the orders of this product. So we go back here, and we don't call it product anymore, as we saw, because we already have it there. So we're going to call it order. So the field is called order ID. Again, we have the claim, and then here we are going to pass what comes from our field called product ID. So don't forget that this is the name of the real name of the field, is the label. And on the products, what we want to have is no longer the products, but the orders, and the parent is going to be product ID. So with this, we are again creating a third drop-down. And I'm going also to copy paste this here and just replace it by the information. So claim in this case is the product, and we want to have the orders. And here we will receive a product, so that we receive on the second drop down. And here our product will iterate by all the orders that are connected to via the relationship one-to-many. And finally, for each of those orders that we have, I'm going to display the order, and then there is a specific appends field that we are doing. What is the name? Order description. So this is a computed field, as we already saw in the previous tutorial. And here, as we see, we have the product now. So I'm just going to put it like this, and I think we are good to go. Again, let me just copy paste this belongs to here too, and in this case we're going to call it coorder except on form. So let's see the final result. Is we have some bugs to correct too. Okay, so supplier Bosco, lightweight, and here we go, order number 7. So if I now change to another order, I see in order 29. So when we create the claim, here we go, have supplier, product, and order. So that's it. Very effective field, and I really strongly encourage you to use it. Thanks for watching. There is a package that I really like to use on my Laravel Nova projects that is called the Nova Chart.js. This package already have, at the moment of this recording, 42,000 downloads. And it's very stable, and it's excellent if you need to visually show information on regarding to your resources, especially for instance on dashboards. That's where I use it. As you can see, you can also have multi-tabular dashboards like these ones, like for instance the 3 lines, 3 columns here and then 2 columns, or just one full one. And it uses Nova 2.0 or higher, but there is other versions in case you have a Nova that's not 2.0. Although I strongly recommend that you go to these higher versions here, so you always get the latest version on. So let's see how we can use this package. You just download these ones. Also, you can find it on the Nova package as Chart.js dashboard, and you'll get it here on this website via redirect there. So to install it is very simple. We just need to copy paste the library. Just give it a moment. Almost there. There you go. It's installed. And the next thing you just need to do is to actually use it as, for instance, on the dashboards. That's the example I'm going to show you here. So let's create a new dashboard very quickly. PHP Artisan Nova dashboard. And I don't know, it's just for the sake of the exercise, so I can call it tickets, insights, for instance. Now we need to add a dashboard to our dashboards. You just need to go to your Nova service provider, and you go to the dashboards, and you just add that one there, new tickets, insights, just like this. Okay, successfully imported. And now if we go back to our Nova app, we should see something on the left, tickets insights. So clearly now it's empty because we didn't load any cards there, and we are going to load a card of an example of the chart. So all you need to do is just to copy this code, go back to your dashboard here on the left, so app Nova dashboards, and then you have the zone of the cards here where you just need to put the dashboard itself as the card itself as in this case in inline code, just to see that it works. So I'm just going to, so here you load wherever you want. Okay, this is of course is static, as you know, but it's really amazing to see this on our dashboard here. So you just refresh the screen again, and you can see here all the information. So it has a hover behavior. You can have links, you can have other types of charts, as you can see here. You can have bar charts, you can have not stacked bar charts, you can have line charts, I mean pie charts aggregated. My god, it's just a full world of charts, points that you can see here. And of course, if you want to use another one, you just copy paste this, and don't forget you have this width here that defines how you want the chart to appear. So for instance, now it should consume a bit more, exactly. So I can say, for instance, 2/3 on this one, and I copy paste another one, sorry, on this one. I can stack, let's get another one, for instance Going up a bit. Yeah, this one, the pie. So I'm just going to put it here, just like this. I ignored the class, and I say it's one is 2/3, the other one is 1/3. And I load it again. And now you see the pie chart there with a small animation. So it's very, very nice. And again, I really encourage you to use it in case you need to show graphical information. It's one of the best ones that I found out giving my Laravel Nova project experience, searching for packages that can draw charts. So one thing that you might see on Nova is not responsive. So if I do something like this, Nova doesn't have any type of responsiveness theme that works in a way that it just can be compatible with small devices or mobile devices on this case. So one package that I strongly advise you to install if you need this is on the Nova packages is this responsive theme made by Gregorio. So this package actually suffered several different improvements a long time. As you can see, it's version 0.8.1. It was added 2 years ago and it gets regularly updated in case it's needed. So it was updated 9 months ago. And here, all you have to do is just install the package. It's very simple. And after it's installed, you just need to export to publish the configuration file. That is something also came on the latest versions. And here you can see that you do have this Nova theme responsive, and it allows you to do certain things that I'm just going to show to you. So the first thing that it's really cool is that as soon as you refresh the page, now you are already in responsive mode. So let me show to you what does this mean. So as soon as I start stretching a bit here, as you can see, it already removes the sidebar, and you still don't get it completely as you would like to, but it also allows you to actually enhance it, let's say, so with some of the options that you can use here. For instance, it says the sidebar will stay fixed on desktop view. This is actually a very nice one that I like. So when you scroll down, as you can see, the sidebar on the left just doesn't stay sticky. So as soon as you change this to true and you refresh the page, you will see that now the bar says sticky on the left. Really, really nice. And there is more options that you can have here. So like, for instance, if true hides the update and continue edit buttons on update forms. So this is in the case that you are updating a form like this. And as you can see, you do have the buttons here. And if you say true, it will actually in this case just hide one of the buttons that is the continuing, because it takes some space there. So it's a very nice package. You can actually go by all of these options that are here for actions, and also having sticking actions on mobile. Hide all sidebar headlines if you want to, again, to gain some space on the left. And here also it creates this small border menu here that then allows you to actually select back your new resource. And again, it's just as soon as it gets there, it tries to gather all the space that it can for your table. And again, you have this with a Z index. There is a small thing here on the top right, as you can see, a small mistake, but again, it doesn't actually removes the popularity of this package. And again, it's being updated from time to time from the owner. So again, strongly encourages to use it in case you need some responsiveness on your Laravel Nova back office on this case. So let's see how we can integrate on Nova OAuth authentication. So in this case, I have an example here that's already built in, because if I'm going to do all of this code, it's 1 hour just on this tutorial for you, and I think it's unnecessary. So I'm going to show to you how we can actually use an OAuth authentication provider like GitHub. So let me exemplify here. I click on the login for GitHub. I am redirected to GitHub. I try to log in. So this is exactly as a user will do on your case to access the your Nova. So I'm just putting here the authentication code, and then I'm redirecting back to Nova, to my Nova project, and I am authenticated, as you can see here on the right, on the top right. So how can we do this? And this is just as a remark, we're going to change some files from Nova, so I need to pay attention to this in case you do a composer update and you see that the file it can change basically, so you can actually need to redo everything again. Pay attention to that. We're not going to change a lot of things, but still some things will be changed directly into the package of Laravel Nova. So let's go step by step on how do we do that. So let me show you here on the code everything that I did to make this happen. So the first thing that you need to do is actually to install Laravel Socialite. So you just need to do a composer require Laravel Socialite. I already did it, so I'm not going to do it again. It installs Laravel Socialite. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing happens there. Then on the config services, you need to add your GitHub array key with your client ID, client secrets, and redirect. You get this information if you go to github.com/settings/developers. I'm not going to show you here just for security reasons, but you have the GitHub client ID and you can generate a GitHub client secret. Now, what is important is this line that I wrote here. It actually goes to your app URL on your .env file. It concatenates your Nova path, and then this part should be static. You should not change this. It's actually what comes on the Laravel documentation about Laravel Socialite, and I completely propose you not to change at all, just because if you change here, you need to change on other places on the code base. So /login/github/callback, this is the one that is matched, needs to be matched with exactly the same that you will have on your GitHub developer settings. At the last field that you'll see on the bottom, it asks you to write your redirect path, and on my case I just wrote exactly this. I'm using Windows, so I have port 8000, and then Nova, and then login, and then GitHub, and then callback. So this is what I wrote there, and this is where it will be redirected, just like you saw on the example. So that's what we need to do on the services file. Now, the next thing you need to do is actually to deep dive into the Laravel Nova code base and make some changes there. So the first change we need to do is actually on login controller. You'll see, so this login controller is on the source, HTTP controllers, and then login controller. You need to add the methods that comes on the Laravel documentation on the Socialites. It's the redirect to provider, so I'm just using GitHub here, and then also the handle provider callback. Here I tweaked a bit the code, as you can see, compared with the Laravel documentation. So basically what I'm saying is that I'm searching for my Nova user using the email, so the GitHub information token data that comes from GitHub after the user is logged in successfully on GitHub, it gives you access to the email. And I'm using the email to actually verify if it's the same or not. You can actually use extra parameters like the GitHub ID, but then you also need to change your migration file and your database on the users table to have the GitHub ID. It's a good practice, but I'm not using it here just for the sake of the example. So as soon as I find an email with the same authenticated user that was done in the GitHub, for me that user is valid. And if I have it on my database, then that's okay. I can log in and then redirect to the config.nova path, by default the /nova that we will use. So this is basically the code that is done here. Now the last thing you need to do is actually to go to your routes file, here, the web, and just add the two routes that are there. And you need to add the two files that are there on the Laravel, that comes on Laravel docs. The only thing that I did was I changed the namespace for the Laravel Nova. Instead of using the one that is just app/models HTTP/controllers, I placed Laravel Nova, and also I gave a name here just because of the blade file on the form that I'm just going to show to you in a minute. Now again, this part here, don't forget, it is exactly the same as the callback, so pay attention to that. It needs to be the same on the services that you have there. And on the login controller, as we saw, we just need to add these two methods, nothing else. The rest works perfectly fine. And in case the user is not found, then it will just redirect back to the login page on this case. Finally, I just want to show to you the blade file. And this, again, you need to go to the resources views on your Laravel Nova package. And on the auth, you have this layout. And on the layout, the only thing I did was, on the login, the only thing I did was at the end, I just added this form that somehow masks a bit the other form, and it adds something at the end. You do this as you want. This is for the sake of the example that I have here. I just did it simple as this. And here on the route, I just placed this GitHub login. So this is the one that comes from the routes file here on the web. That's why I gave him a name instead of actually put the action or calling it on another name, on another way. So just with the name is very simple. You give the same name here and then it's done. Don't forget that the method is not post in case you copy this form. This is the post from the normal Laravel Nova login, but in this case it's a get method because it needs to be redirected to the other URL from GitHub. And that's it. And if it works well, again, you just need to go for the login. In this case, I already have my user logged in, so it's persistent. It received the information from GitHub, and it just logs in on Laravel Nova. Pretty straightforward. If you want to use multi-tenancy with your Laravel Nova project, you might check out this one made by Spatie. There is another one. There are another ones also very good, but I decided to make this video to show to you how simple it is to actually configure multi-tenancy and then use Laravel Nova on a single instance of your project to manage multiple websites automatically. So I already installed this package, so I'm going to show to you step by step what I did, because if not, it will take a lot of time to do all the operations. So the first thing you need to do is actually to just do a composer require. Of course, before that, what I did was I created two databases here. I created actually three databases: the landlord database, the site1 database, the site2 database, and I created two DNS entries that basically are the site1.localhost.com and the site2.localhost.com. So these two ones are the ones that actually will work as tenants, and each of those ones will connect to the site1 or site2 or to the landlord in case you want to actually create the two entries for my two tenants that I have connected to two domains. So the fact that we have this configuration is actually the configuration that comes on Spatie, and if you go to the requirements and to the documentation that is very, very detailed, you can see all of that there. So the first thing after doing that on the database and on our DNS to test it locally, you just need to install the package and then run the configuration file. The configuration file is here, although you'll see that there are some values that comes to null, and you need actually to really follow the documentation because this is an unopinionated, like Spatie says, package, so it doesn't come pre-configured for a single database multi-tenancy or for a multiple database multi-tenancy. It doesn't even have a way to create tenants in a very agile way. So you need to pay attention to all of that. So after having the config file, and just to show to you here, config this file multi-tenancy that is here, the next thing you need to do is actually to load these two classes on your middleware in case you're just using them for all of your routes. And here it's very simple. You just go to the app, HTTP kernel, and on the web group, middleware group, I just added these two here directly, just like it says on the documentation. The next thing we need to do is to basically choose between having a single database or multiple databases. In my case, it's multiple databases, so I click here. And here you do need to configure the tenant and the landlord, and paying attention that the database here is null because it's going to be dynamically configured and specified by the package depending on the website and the location, the URL that you are. So what I did, I went to config, to the database, and here I have the landlord, and here I have the tenant, and they are exactly the same except for this database null. What I did was actually to copy paste this from the MySQL or MySQL and just place it here with database null, and this one I just call it landlord with the database landlord, this tenant with database null. So this is what I did on this part. Then migrating the landlord database. So here you first publish the migration and then you run this command. Very simple. When you run this command, it goes to the landlord and it creates this table called tenants, but it's going to come empty. You need actually to fill it up. And what I did was basically I went to I went where? I went to my tenant. I created a model here called tenant, so I can use it, as you can see. Right, sorry. And I went to the seeders, and on the seeders I actually verify when I'm running a seeder if you're on a tenant, you just do, the check current will come true. So what I do is, if I'm not on the tenant when I run any migration, this seeder, sorry, I will create two sites. If I am on a tenant database, then I will create 10 users. So this is what I did, and we're going to run this again, especially for the tenants here, so you can see how it works out. So the next thing you need to pay attention to is you also need to add this class to the switch tenant tasks. Normally I think it comes null, but if you go here to the config multi-tenancy to the switch tenant tasks, I added this one. I also had you can also add another task called prefix cache. I also added here, but it's not necessary for this tutorial that I'm doing. I'm actually just using this one. But Spatie gives you another task class that you can use. You can create more, you just need to add them there. Each time you switch the tenant, it will run everything here that you define on these tasks. Then you just need to migrate the databases. This unfortunately gave an error when you run this command. So if I go here to the window and I try to run this, it gives an error saying that it doesn't detect the database. It's very strange because it should run one and then another one, because I'm selecting database tenant that is here. So actually what you need to do is to run them with the ID of the tenant that you want to do. So for instance, in this case, -- tenant equals to 1, or -- tenant equals to 2, and it will create the users automatically. So in this case, just for you to show, you run the 1, so run everything there, and then you run the 2, and it runs again, but on the site 2, as it says here. This is really nice to say what is the name of the site. There are other packages that don't have these, which sometimes you have a lot of tenants. If one gives an error, you don't know exactly what it happened, that error. So the next one that you need to do is basically just use the code, do the migration. What I did was I created a factory where I placed 10 users there, as you saw, here on the database seeder. So if I go back to my database now, and I go back to site 1, I will see that I have this 10 users, and in the second one I also have another 10 users that are completely different. That's fine, it's going very well, but I don't have a Nova user. So to do that, it's very simple. I think I still have here the command. If not, I will run it down. So what you need to do is basically just write Nova user for each of those tenants, and just create site1 admin, for instance, site1 at admin.com, and then you run for the second one, you run site2 admin, site2 at admin.com. There you go. So now if we go back to the database on the site 1, you should see a site1 admin. Here we go. And if you go to the site 2, you see the site2 admin. Great. So we have the tenants created, we have the users that are different. So how does it work now with Nova? Well, it works immediately exactly like that. So I'm doing PHP Artisan Serve. I go back to my page here. I open a new one now, site1.localhost.com/Nova. So as you can see, I have the site 1 and site 2. They point to my localhost on my Windows computer. So what I'm just going to do is I actually going to enter. So if I put a site 1, it will say that it doesn't exist, because as you can see on the top left on the URL, I'm on the site 2. So it says credential doesn't match. But if I go to the site 2 and I do a password and I paste the password, it is exactly the same. I just got inside. And here, now you are completely contextualized on the correct database that you have there. So for instance, if I call site2 administrator and it will update user, it updates the user from the site2 database. So if I go back to my SQL, my SQL, it says site2 administrator. Now if I change to site 1, because it's not contextualized on the authentication gate, and because we are on another URL, then I need to relog in again And when I go to users, site1 admin, which is perfect, I can write super user, and logically it's just changed on that one. I go back to my database, to the site2. I still see here the site2 admin. There is no site1. If I go to this one, I see the site1 super user change. So again, with one with the same code, the same project, attention, because these are two domains, you need to have two different Nova licenses in case you have the basic license. And what you can do is, with the same Nova code, you automatically shift from one to the other one with this package automatically. The package, it works out of the box like this. There was no change that I did on the Nova config file. Exactly nothing. I just made a brand new installation here 5 minutes ago. And as you can see, it works pretty well for your web projects in this case.